So, you're a new grad, or you need to choose majors or careers, and you're absolutely frightened and clueless to make up your mind. Well, congratulations, you found the right video and the right person to guide you along. Now, am I Jeffrey Bezos with a B, as in billions in my net worth? No. But have I faced my fears, paid my dues, and overcome my crippling existential crises? You bet your ass I have. And good news, my friend, so can you. So why don't you go and grab a piece of paper and prepare to take some notes. Number 1, use the Japanese principle called ikigai to find out what you should be doing. It's pretty simple. You take out a piece of paper, literally a piece of paper, draw 4 circles. Each circle you write what you're good at, what you love to do, because sometimes they might be different, what gets you paid, and what the society needs. You might need to spend some time figuring out what those circles are. It might not always be easy to acquire the skills that you want to have, but the math is simple. The math always works. For instance, I've always known that I'm a good teacher, and I've always known that I'm good at speaking English, but I also know that teaching English isn't always lucrative. I had no students, I had no leads or prospects, and I'm a very creative person, and teaching English isn't always artistic. But once I put everything down on the paper, I could see where it all intersects and overlaps. I may not have always known that I would be a content creator and doing this for a living, but I always knew I was gonna incorporate some of my artistic touch, my artistic self-expression into teaching. As cliche as it sounds, Steve Jobs once put it, the dots only connect after you look back on your life. They won't connect in the moment. Number 2, limit your options, at least for a while. The excess of choice and the paralysis by analysis that comes with it is an unfortunate byproduct of living in a world of overstimulation, excess, and hyperconnectivity. It doesn't even matter how good the math is, how clear the plan is. You'll still think to yourself, but what if something better comes along? No. Stop it, okay? You gotta make a decision. And ironically, it's easier to make a decision, and a good one at that, when you have a limited amount of options. So, if you find yourself overwhelmed or even paralyzed by indecision, try to artificially limit the amount of options that you have. When you find it, commit to it. Don't worry, you can still back out, you can still change your mind. That's what your 20s are supposed to be for. You could spend a year, you could waste a whole year doing something that you won't do for the rest of your life. But please, do bring your whole heart into this thing that temporarily, at least, you've made up your mind about. Because you can never get good at something or decide that this thing isn't for you if you're constantly doing one thing for a day, decide that it doesn't work, and then quickly abandon ship. Good results come from good commitment. Besides, look around. All the successful people in the world have found one thing and doubled down on their commitment to it. Okay, maybe 3 things. So, if you have 10 business ideas or 10 career paths, narrow it down to 3 and then execute on 1 at a time. Number 3, don't focus on success. Perhaps no other words physically repulse me than the word success itself, because it immediately creates this false dichotomy, as in you're either a success or you're not. And that's a very fatalistic way of looking at things. If your motivation behind every decision is, will this make me successful? Your success will either have a very limited shelf life, or you won't have it. You won't risk anything, because why would you? The weight and pressure of being a success can pin anyone down to the point that you can't move. Then your judgments are clouded by what other people may think of you. Your intelligence are shrunk by delusions of grandeur. It's a recipe for disaster if you're aiming for success every time. What should I aim for instead then, you may ask? Well, for me, seeking to provide value is a more neutral, wholesome, and pragmatic approach. It doesn't dwarf me, but it doesn't give me the permission to sit on my ass either. I still gotta show up and do my job. But the comforting thing about providing value is that it can take many forms. Either you're scrubbing toilets, or you're serving food, or you're composing a piece of music, you're conducting a symphony. All that is valuable. As long as you're not doing anything illegal, as long as you're being a productive member of society, what you're doing is valuable, and you should be proud of yourself for it. And besides, you're young. This is what, your 4th, 5th job? You have your whole life ahead of you. Your career can look so different 10 years from now. So Don't worry about what other people think, and if someone treats you differently, and poorly, I might add, because of what you do, that's on them, okay? That's an indication of who they are in your core. And don't be upset about it either, because now you know who to avoid when you're up there and finally successful, which you will be if you follow step 1 and 2. Number 4. It's not what you do, but how you do it. If you're serious about your craft, you can make a fortune selling dumplings and baozi. I mean, look at Din Tai Fung and what they're doing. It's a global conglomerate at this point, okay? But no child ever aspired to sell baozi or dumplings growing up, at least without their parents whooping their ass. Some people are rich from selling books, from selling bags, from selling stationery items. I mean, I know this lady that paid me like $3,000 to translate a 30-minute material. She just sells stationery items. That's not a sexy career path when I was growing up. But look at her now. So don't be so hell-bent on what companies to work at or what career paths to take, because look around you. Every day, people are getting rich from doing seemingly ordinary and unsexy things. Besides, a lot of times, those popular jobs and popular companies have got too much competition. You gotta think bigger than that. If you are a good person, you'll be good anywhere. Number 5, remember that life is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Any moments of doubt, in the grander scheme of things, is not that significant. I mean, people in their 50s and 60s go through midlife crisis, change career midlife through, have second thoughts about what they're doing. So who are you when you're just starting out in life to have no doubts and no questions whatsoever? It's just not possible. And besides, consider this a rite of passage, a coming-of-age story. Really savor it, because you'll never get the same innocence, freedom, and wonder ever again. Soon enough, you'll have kids or you'll be entangled somehow, and you'll be too busy to really explore yourself. Even if temporarily you may look like you're left behind, you're not. Most people are rushing to get nowhere. Or maybe they started early, they've got better genes, they've got better life conditions. It was never a competition. The people that are ahead of us aren't necessarily better. You just focus on you. You just focus on how to be a better version of you and allow yourself to take all the time you need, because life is a marathon. Then you'll be in good hands. You may not look glamorous. You may not have the opulence that your distant relatives wanted you to have, but so what? It's your life. You'll be happy doing what you do and you won't be lost. That's all that matters. And then my last advice is take every piece of advice with a grain of salt. And yes, that's including mine. Because the people that give you advice don't always know what you're about and what your intentions are. So they can only provide so much value. And sometimes, like my video, could be completely useless for you. So you really have to think critically. Figure out who you are and what you're about and stay true to it, to the point that no service level advice and criticism can deter you from your path.